who play computer games for a long time must be familiar with Snapdragon 810. This infamous sold Qualcomm flagship. In 2015, it brought a little fire shock to players from all walks of life. It can be regarded as the most famous overthrow in the history of mobile phone chip. And I've always been curious, to what extent did the 810 overturn? To be honest, the review back then couldn't be very detailed. The reason why the 800 over became a household name, mainly because he is so bad that it obviously affects the actual experience. Now testing methods have been improved a lot. I believe everyone would like to know, this historical fire 810, what are his subjective data like? How bad is his energy efficiency? What are the 7,420S that compete with it? Apple's 810, including the successor 820. What level are they at? So today's video, let's do some ancient research. Let's talk about Snapdragon 800. In order to let everyone better understand the background of the birth of 810, we need to give you a heads up first. Qualcomm was very proud at that time. Just 5 years ago in 2010, the mobile phone chip market is still at the stage where 100 schools of thought are contending. In addition to today's Samsung MediaTek, that year included then the IDI Texas Instruments, Broadcast, Intel, and other giants. They are all building mobile phone processors. Just talk about the performance of a certain item. In fact, Qualcomm may not be able to defeat these opponents, but he has a trump card. It's a baseband. Qualcomm is a major communications company. You can develop your own baseband. For mobile phones, network communication is simply the core part. Especially after entering the 4G era, Qualcomm holds numerous intellectual property rights. It became tough when he spoke. Manufacturers such as NVIDIA, INT, that can only purchase basebands from other companies are very passive. In addition, the profits of the mobile phone industry, which has become a red ocean, are getting lower and lower. These manufacturers can only slowly withdraw from the mobile phone business. So the 2012 Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 and the Snapdragon 800 and 801 that followed in 2013 and 2014, all very successful. Relying on the departure of competitors, swallowed a lot. It became the dominant player in the field of mobile phone chips. If nothing unexpected happens, Qualcomm will dominate the mobile phone market for a long time. But we almost forgot. Qualcomm also has a rival called Apple. What about their R&D capabilities? A little bit stronger. Apple started with the A4 in 2010. I am developing my own CPU. A5, A6 has entered the dual-core era, achieved a leap in performance. At this time, performance finally catches up with the fiercely competitive Android camp. Originally, you created you and made mine. Everyone slowly updates. Well, water does not offend river water. But no one expected. Apple has great ambitions. Year 2013, Apple launches iPhone 5s. Equipped with the new A7 chip. Apple actually took the lead in introducing a 64-bit processor architecture on the A7. This is the first time that mobile phone chips have entered the 64-bit era, caught all competitors by surprise. And Apple is also very strong when it comes to developers. The 64-bit software ecosystem for iOS was quickly established. In the future, as apps on mobile phones become more and more complex, switching to the 64-bit is inevitable. Apple enters the market so early, you can get rid of their historical baggage as soon as possible. Run the latest apps efficiently and with high performance. Other manufacturers actually understand the importance of 64 bits. Qualcomm is also developing a 64-bit CPU architecture internally. I just didn't expect it to come out so soon. The original plan was to bring it out in 2015 or 2016. As a result, Apple expanded its business in 2013. If the Android camp cannot react in time, then there will be a fragmentation on the developer side. The longer you delay, the gap with Apple in terms of experience will become wider and wider. Qualcomm urgently needs to launch 64-bit chips. But at this point in time, at the end of 2014, it's really a bit out of control. Self-developed architecture cannot keep up. We can only use ARM's public version of the A57 architecture. And since I use the ARM public version, why don't you try ARM's new Big L ICTL, new large and small core design? For more A53s, just get an 8-core CPU. What about the process? Thin FET solutions from various foundries have just been produced. It's too late for Qualcomm to use it. I can only bite it. Let's take a look at TSMC's 20nm, which is about to become obsolete. The last generation of 2D transistors. Oops. Our protagonist today is Snapdragon 810. It was born under such great timing. In order to better show you the Snapdragon 810, this time we asked a few old friends to help grind out this chip. Take a look at the internal structure. As I said before, 810 is the first time Qualcomm has used large and small core designs. But its large and small cores are the same as today's large and small cores. Looks very different. Today's chips, the entire CPU part is a large cluster, but the 810 was limited by the technology at the time. Large nuclear clusters and small nuclear clusters are completely separate. Each has its own second priority. No 3 reprieves between large nuclear clusters and small nuclear clusters to communicate through CCI 400 bus. It sounds very backward, right? I would like to call it the blue size core inside the large nuclear cluster for A57s up to 1.96 GHz. Although in fact it almost never runs at such a high frequency. From large core shared to ML2, A57 is not just ARM's first high-performance 64-bit core. It's also ARM and super high-end, and it hints at a wider core design. So it is relatively large compared to previous CPUs. The small core is for A53s up to 1.56 GHz. For small core shear 5 detail 2, the GPU of the 810 is Adreno 430. Its GPU specifications were quite luxurious at the time. For CU, 256 ALS in total. Compared with the previous generation 805 Adreno, ours is the new 810 version V1. GPU frequency can be increased to 650 MHz. It is the first 810. The frequency will be slightly lower. In addition, Qualcomm as a major communications manufacturer is still relatively strong in baseband technology. The 800 won the Fuso CS with built-in 4G baseband at the time. No need for plug-in. Take a look at this entire chip. The biggest feeling that gives me is big. 810 is really big. Total area 142. In fact, it is Qualcomm's largest mobile phone chip so far. Bigger than today's A Gen 3. As a comparison, this is Samsung ZXYNO S7420. Wow, it's a whole lot smaller. Of course, one of the reasons is that the 7420 has an external baseband. But anyway, we just look at the CPU part. These two are also A57 large cores. A single A57 of this 810 is 94 larger than A57 of the 7420, almost doubled. You can thank 3 transistors for seeing this. 7420 is Samsung's first chip using FET technology. 14 nm process, compared with high-end TSM's D20 nm. That's really one sky and one earth. Still have a question. It is the CCI bus we just mentioned. So see like 810. The bus takes up a large part of the area. We calculated that 20 of the area of 810 is used on them. To be honest, there is no way to optimize the root area. Today, CS such as a Gen 3, its bus only accounts for 12. Therefore, the progress of chip design is in all aspects. That year 810, there is also a younger brother named 808. Let's also briefly compare. The area of 808 is much smaller than that of 810. This is also normal, because it's very neutered. The CPU has only 2 A57 large cores for A53 small. GPU scale cut in half. Only 128 ALs left. Memory controller compared to 810 supports CellPD at 1600. 808 has also been current and only supports CellPD at 3933. Memory bandwidth plummets. Others like ISP, DSP, etc. 808 also has castration. Only the baseband is still the same as the 810. However, the 808 Plus has some optimizations compared to the 810. The floor space is slightly reduced. This in turn also shows that 810 was indeed very rushing ducks to the shells at that time. Look at it this way. The relationship between the two people 800 hands for 808. A bit like today's age Gen 3 and A-test Nyent. It's just that Qualcomm at the time wasn't so shameless as to name it or something like that. After reading the internal design specifications of 810, it's time to actually measure performance and power consumption. I believe everyone has been waiting for it for a long time, right? Come and get this Xiaomi Note Pro at room temperature first. No auxiliary cooling required. Run the CPU's furnace. This multi-core can only reach more than 500 points. What's going on? Isn't this too enough? Now any low-end processor. A single core can beat the multi-core of this 810. Is this really the strength of 810? I do not believe, as a member of Geek Bay, we won't give up until we drain the processor. So we quickly obtained the ROE permissions of this Xiaomi Note Pro. Install this software called Little Dragon Run. This is specially designed for 810. Can kill system temperature control and lock all cores. Keep running at high frequency and full blood. But using that deleting temperature control will not reduce the frequency. In fact, in addition to system temperature control, it also has a core temperature control. This is a very level temperature control. It's useless if you change the Android system. You have to recouple the kernel to break it. We found the kernel source code of Snapdragon 810. It can be seen that the core temperature exceeds 95 degrees and starts to decrease the frequency. The core will go offline after exceeding 105 degrees. If the temperature exceeds 115 degrees, the phone will restart. How can such a conservative scheduling strategy achieve high scores? So let's raise the temperature one a little bit. 110 degree frequency reduction. 1 to 15 degrees offline. Shut down at 120 degrees. Well, that makes sense. Including frequency, we have also locked it at the highest 1.96 GHz. Even if it's hot enough to restart, there will be no more frequency reduction at all. Finish it like this. Even this to dissipate heat, it will be fully loaded. Look. Direct overheat shutdown. Good. This is the effect you want. At this time, it's time to use the cooling back clip. Speaking of which, cooling back clips only became popular in 2020. The primitive people 10 years ago probably had never seen such a naughty. This 810 means I never felt so cool in my life. Then in this environment of full blood relief, guess how many points 810 can score? Multi-core over 1100. What concept? This result, even better than the next generation 820, and the ultimate performance of Apple A9 is even stronger. This full house 810 is a bit fierce. Of course, one of the reasons is that the 810 has 4 state cores. The multi-core score was later reduced to 820 with 4 cores. There's also a dual-core A9. It must be ugly. And another reason, needless to say, you must have guessed it. The power consumption of this thing has really taken off. The platform power consumption of the CPU is nearly 11 W when fully loaded. At that time, humans had never seen such a terrifying posture. By the way, let's take a look at the single-core performance. I have to say, although the single A57 is a big improvement compared to Qualcomm's Tito-bit 805, but I still have to order in front of Apple. Even if the toothpaste chip is squeezed out like K8, single-core is better than 800's A57, not to mention the later A9. Apple's high-performance few-core strategy gives it unparalleled single-core performance. The overall complexity of the processor is also well controlled. At that time, programs generally could not utilize so many cores, still quite popular. In order to more fully analyze these old chips, it also took us 2 months. Continue to measure the energy efficiency and various frequency points of high, middle, and low frequency. Pull out the complete energy efficiency curve. Come and take a good look. 810 really lived up to expectations. It ran a very interesting curve. 810 is not a complete rookie. This is a 64-bit processor after all. You can say that its CPU energy efficiency is compared to the previous generation 3800. It is indeed better under most loads. But first, here's the multi-core energy efficiency curve. 8-core processors have natural advantages. Secondly, the extreme power consumption of 810. It's really the high. As we said before, this full load power consumption of more than 10 W stuffed into the broken fuselage of that year's mobile. There is no possibility of performing well at all. In addition, its low frequency energy efficiency is not particularly ideal either. Still stuck at the level of the previous generation. Compared to 810, the EXYENOS 7420, which also uses A57, A53, CPU energy efficiency is significantly ahead of 810, even ahead of the later 820. This is the power of using the epoch-making thin FE process. When 14 nm first appears, Samsung has the upper hand. The EXYENOS also became famous battle, earned the title of Android Lite. But for Samsung, this good momentum did not last long. In the second half of 2015, TSMC launched the 60 nm FED process, used on Apple's A9. I don't know if you still remember. Back then, the Apple A9 used a mix of TSMC and Samsung processes. Make a fuss. It just so happens that this time we tested both TSMC and Samsung versions. Let me dig out the truth about A9 for everyone. First, I have to say, A9 is indeed an epoch-making excellent chip in Apple's history. No matter which version, compared with the previous A8, it is greatly improved. As a dual-core processor, it can actually catch up with the 8-core 7420 in terms of multi-core energy efficiency. It's really outrageous. But just as netizens suspected back then, this Samsung A9 is really different from TSMC's A9. There is not much difference in CPU low frequency. However, the high-frequency Samsung A9 has significantly higher power consumption than the TSMC version. I didn't believe it when I first tested it. How could there be such a big difference? Then I changed several machines to test. It's all like this. It seems that these two versions of voltmeters are really different. Maybe this generation of Samsung technology is still more difficult to run at high frequencies than TSMC. It also allowed us to see this TSMC version of the Apple sign. It's really the divine new among the divineness. At the same time, Qualcomm's own next generation chip, the 820. I finally used the self-developed 64-bit architecture. Finally, I no longer have to be tortured by the ARM public version. But it seems that the multi-core energy efficiency is just average, beaten by the previous 7420 and day 9 term. I can only say that overall it is indeed better than the 810. The peak power consumption has also been slightly controlled. At least it works. Also worthy of attention. It's 808, the close brother of 810. After missing a few cores, the low frequency energy efficiency of 808 is really better. At least it's on the level of the iPhone 6's A8. But the small scale means that the high performance segment cannot be reached. If it exceeds 5W, it is worse than 810. And compared with gods like 7420 and day is still very, very weak. This generation of Qualcomm is indeed far behind. Let's go back to 810. In fact, just looking at the energy efficiency curve, 810 may not be able to beat the opponent by a long way, but compared with the previous 805, doesn't seem particularly bad. I want to say that the peak power consumption is high. Today's A17 Pro demonstrating 9300 and 8 Gen 3 also have very high power consumption. Isn't the trend of 810 similar to theirs? Ideal mobile phones work today. Why can't I use 810? In fact, fundamentally speaking, times have changed from 2014 to 2020. First of all, the first point is, the heat dissipation design of mobile phones is different. The thermal conductivity has changed. Look at current mobile phones. It's silicone grease gel, heat dissipation field, and vapor chamber. Then the middle frame strap, including the design of the screen and back cover, all have to be considered to bear the. Let me show you what mobile phones looked like 10 years ago. Open the back cover. It's directly the motherboard. Wow, the precision of this PCB design, to put it harshly, it's just larger than before. There is no need to think about heat dissipation. Even heat pipe heat conduction was forced to be introduced into mobile phones in the 810 generation. I didn't experiment here. These two machines around 10 years ago. We put a heating pad on the processor, constant 5W power, warm up your phone. You look at today's mobile phones and it's almost no time. The heat is exported and quickly passed through the vapor chamber, spread evenly over the entire body. In comparison, cell phones from 10 years ago, not only is it difficult to export heat, and it's always concentrated in the processor area, it's not evenly distributed over the entire body. Mobile phone is a passive cooling device. If you keep heating up like this at full mode. In fact, even today's mobile phones can't hold it. But mobile phones from 10 years ago, it can't even hold a full load for a few seconds. Because the heat is accumulated in the processor. I hit 100 in 1 second, so I must lower my frequency. Today's mobile phones have good heat distribution design. At least it can guarantee a short-term high burst. It can be dissipated evenly. No problem. This is exactly in line with the working conditions of mobiles. After all, most people's mobile phones will not be fully loaded for a long time. This is the first point, heat dissipation. The second and more important point is the scheduling strategy. Today's processors have sophisticated DVFS strategy. According to task load, you will make frequency control very intelligently and in real time. Accelerate the moment you need performance. After calculating, hurry up and come down. If you keep accelerating, the fever is here. You all knew you needed to take a breath down to lower frequency. So do you know what was wrong with the 810 machine back then? It would be nice if it could just be unplugged. He also likes to shut down nuclear power. Take this Xiaomi Note Pro for example. Even though the 810 is an 8-core processor, there are 4 large cores. These 4 large cores are often not used at the same time, like on Taobao or in an application like WeChat. He only drives 2 big cores. Sometimes only 1 big core is enabled. And he also likes to prioritize small cores. He will use a small core to run high frequency. If you can do without a big core, then don't use a big core. The annoying thing your 857 is used for. The most annoying thing is that even if the big core is offline, it doesn't mean that there is no power consumption at all. Bulk core design at the time, it consumes power anyway. Even if you only use a few of the small cores. Use the big core occasionally. You see the power consumption of Taobao and WeChat machines exceeds 4W. Of course, today's Taobao and WeChat are also considered 3M masterpieces. But what I want to say is, prioritize. It doesn't help you control power consumption. It will also make the application very laggy. In order to explore why 810 needs to be shut down, we decided to run a stress test to find out. After the CPU is fully loaded, at the beginning in order to pursue performance, the 4 large cores indeed ran up to 1.96 GHz, but almost only a few seconds. I couldn't bear it and down clocked it to 960 MHz. Some time passed. The temperature is still out of control, so I shut down the core directly without further reducing the failure gives me. This scheduling strategy is very rigid and mechanized. If frequency drops and you still have fever, then continue to lower it. No need to switch to just 1 frequency. Then just quit, right? Everyone understands. If you really only 1 big core, even just use small cores, this energy efficiency will only get worse. The performance is still not up to par. A chip as bad-tempered as the 810 is really a weirdo among weirdos. I can only understand that compared with now, this design is just too childish. Some students may be curious, this 810 mobile phone, in our current endurance test model, how long can he hold up? In fact, the difficulty we encountered at the beginning was, our endurance robot has not been developed for the 3 King Kongs. It can only use full screen operation mode. But this doesn't bother us. One full screen logic. Just flash the phone and you're done. Let's use this Nexus 6P to toss around. This Nexus is indeed robust-san. Easily installed a third-party system of Android 10, and we successfully completed the battery life test. Lasted a total of 2 hours and 32 minutes. I saw this battery life figure, which is similar to that of a gaming laptop. I'm quite pleased that today's mobile phone chips are getting better and better in energy efficiency. Batteries can get bigger and bigger. It's really unimaginable. How do you use more than 2 hours of battery life? Of course, we're measuring it by today's standards. The apps back then were not so bloated. I could have lasted more than 4 hours at that time, right? After talking about the performance of the CPU, let's take a look at the GPU again. I was just going to test it using Aztec Smarter Standard. It's so convenient to connect with our current database. After the test, it was found that something was not right. Many GPS at that time were unable to achieve normal results. The benchmark software crashed before I entered it. As a last resort, we could only use the popular Manhattan 3.0 for testing, although a bit old, but more suitable for testing these GPS from 10 years ago. Test the energy efficiency of this GPU. It's a bit unexpected. I didn't expect the GPU performance of Snapdragon 810. It seems to be okay. In the case of process disadvantages, the 810 GPU not only beats the EXYNO S7000 for 120 in extreme performance, even in terms of energy efficiency, the 810 is better. And the same power consumption is lower than 7420. It's fair to say the other way around. In fact, the modding GPU of EXYNO S is too weak. The GPU of this T760 MP, the floor space is not small. While it's hard to beat Qualcomm's Adreno 430, I feel that the Air and public version GPU back then was really quite backward in design. As for the GPU of the 808, the little brother of the 810, after cutting down the scale, extreme performance is really a stretch. I haven't even played with the previous generation 805, but the GPU energy efficiency is pretty good. It is close to the mid-low frequency performance of its big brother 810. Of course, the most amazing thing here is the GPU. In fact, it is the next generation's Qualcomm, Snapdragon 820. Just at the CPU, the energy efficiency performance of 820 is quite average, but when it comes to the GPU, a strong man descends directly from the sky. This new architecture Adreno 530 beats all their competing product. Qualcomm is indeed far ahead in GPU research and development. The GPU performance of Apple A9 is also good. Back then, Apple's GPU was still designed by imagination. With Android flagships, each generation comes and goes, but there are 2 versions of A9. You can also see the difference in GPU energy efficiency. TSMC is still better than Samsung. but the gap between the two is not as huge as the CPU high frequency. Maybe it's because the GPU can run at high frequencies and voltages. We can reach the turning point that widens the gap, right? Okay, it's time to talk. It's time to test. Is there anything missing? All right, let's play some games and see. Use 810 to play games. How was the experience? This time our game testing also needs to be a bit retro. I selected 3 mobile games that people play more frequently back then. Temple Run 2, Modern Warfare 5, and Asphalt 8. There should be a lot of old players in front of the screen. I was shocked when I heard these games. It reminds me of my youthful. Okay, let's take a look at Temple Run 2 first. I remember when the first generation came out. I just play on my iPod Touch day and night. Later, the second generation update. The picture suddenly became much better. There's even a Windows Phone version. Lumi, who was still using Lumia 920 at the time, experienced some gameplay. Temple Run 2 from a testing perspective. Let's just think of it as the king of glory 10 years ago. The pressure is relatively small. Almost no mobile phone can run less than 60 frames, so we mainly compare power consumption. Look at the results. Hey, the prototype of Snapdragon 810 is revealed here. Play such a simple game. The power consumption of the whole machine even reaches 4.2 W, worse than the previous generation 805 model. If you have just read the energy efficiency curve, you may find it strange. Isn't the energy efficiency of 800 better than that of 805? Then you will understand when you look at the scheduling strategy. This 810 actually used only 4 small cores to escape from the temple. All 4 cores are offline. Are you kidding, bro? The energy efficiency is not bad, then it's crazy. In comparison, even the 32-bit 805 still has 4 large cores running. Obviously, the 853 small core cannot touch porcelain. The best performing among these machines is actually the OnePlus 3 equipped with Snapdragon 820. Power consumption of the whole machine is 1.8 new, quite energy efficient. Apple and Samsung processors also perform well. It should be said that for mobile phones at that time, the space that the scheduling strategy can volume is still very large. It's really as important as the energy efficiency of the processor itself. Then it's time to turn up the pressure a little. Let's switch to a more difficult game. Modern Warfare 5. As the FPS series produced by Gameloft, the major mobile game manufacturer of the year, Modern Warfare can be regarded as the most anticipated replacement for Call of Duty by players in the mobile phone industry at that time. What impressed me deeply was Modern Warfare 3. The picture quality really shocked me at that time. It does feel a bit like 3A. Modern Warfare 5, released in 2015, is the last game in the series. It's a pity Modern Combat 5 is the beginning of Gameloft's decline, but the quality of the game itself is still very good. The picture is also quite beautiful. Such a masterpiece. How efficient was it on the mobile phones of that year? We tested it and found that the result is a bit interesting. Thanks to powerful GPU, this Xiaomi Note Pro equipped with Snapdragon 810 actually performs well in Modern Combat 5. Average power consumption for 49 frames is 3.9 new. It's considered normal performance. Of course, compared to the iPhone 6s Plus, which is close to 60 frames, and the next generation GPU 820 model with excellent energy efficiency, this performance is still far behind. But with the weak 808 model that just reached 30 frames, compared with the 805 model Nexus 6, which has a much higher power consumption, this 810 is still much stronger. Compared with the XYNO S7420 ICU, although there's difference of 2 frames in frame rate, but the power consumption is even lower than Xiaomi's, pretty evenly matched. I think Xiaomi's 810 performed reasonably in Modern Combat 5. But the next game, not so easy to deal with, introducing Asphalt 8. Wow, this is really the memory of my guest. I tell you, the 8.8 game is the culprit that prompted me to switch back to the Android camp. Because my Lumia 920 configuration was too outdated, finally waited until AA logged into Windows. As a result, I got a lot of stuff while playing. The screen has also been castrated. I watched my roommate's iPhone play with all the special effects, and it really made me jealous. In the end, I just couldn't hold it back. I bit the bullet and replaced a Nexus 5. I have never left the Android camp since then. I have been playing the game until I started working on Geekwan, and I am still playing it. I believe that many of your classmates here, I think everyone has played this game before. Definitely a classic mobile game. The performance requirements of this game. It is a typical low threshold and high upper limit. Most Xmos, you can even run it with 3GS. But if you want to play at 60 frames with full special effects, it's also quite difficult. In particular, its requirements for the CPU are really not low. Sure enough, we measured it. Xiaomi Note Pro with Snapdragon 810. In Asphalt 8, performance is worse. Despite flat upper power consumption, it can only run an average of 37. The frame rate is far inferior to Mi UZX YNO S7420. Not even as high as Nexus 6. What's going on? Let's look at the scheduling strategy. It seems that we have encountered a nuclear issue again. Most of the time, the game only opens one big core. There are several sections that even run off small cores. Then you really can't expect its performance to be that strong. Initially, the large core is active. It can still run more than 40 frames, but soon the big core went offline. Hey, look at the frame rate and it immediately drops. Later, after running for a long time, it becomes hot. Big core won't even come back. The frame rate is less than 30 frames for a long time. It's a lot of discomfort. The gaming experience is pretty bad. Then you know, this Xiaomi 810. Just keep playing with 5W power consumption. How outrageous is this body temperature? The highest temperature can even exceed 58 degrees. 58 This doesn't even solve the problem of temperature controls. Default scheduler, still at room temperature disconnected from the internet. After playing for half an hour, I was too hot to play. Now you know why it was called 810 Fire Dragon. Even worse is the Nexus 5X equipped with the younger brother 808. In actual take, its 2 big cores were shot as soon as they came out. The whole process can only reach a frame rate of about 20 frames. Isn't this too laggy to play? Same damn. iPhone 6s Plus can even run very smoothly at close to 60 frames throughout the process. Qualcomm's subsequent 820 models also achieve game performance of more than 50 frames with very low power consumption. Great progress in energy efficiency. So as for players holding this generation of 810 and 808, it was really a big injustice back then. Of course, as a repertoire, I see that many viewers want us to challenge Snapdragon 810. Can he play with Genshin Impact? The answer is, okay, he can really outrun Genshin Impact. Even the frame rate is surprisingly still playable. It seems that there are more than 20 frames and close to 30 frames. Of course, the premise is the cooling backlight must be installed. Apply full health dispatch, and you can let the processor lock the core. And after playing for a while, it will probably crash. Because at that time, mobile phones only had 3G memory. It's not enough for Genshin Impact at all. It's okay, we were just having. It's already beyond expectations if it can be started. Originally, I just wanted to do archaeology. Let's see how much this famous Fire Dragon 810 in history weighs. I didn't expect to make such a long video. It could be regarded as giving everyone a comprehensive understanding of 810. I believe you have also discovered the problem of 810 cannot be summed up in a simple sentence. It's not as simple as 3 words difference in energy efficiency. On the one hand, his timing was unlucky. Missed many important technology iteration. On the other hand, he is also a product that is particularly rushed. That sentence is well explained. Is it okay not to release? Not only the hardware design is full of traces of under-optimization, CPU scheduling strategy is also a huge problem. Frequent shutdowns have become its fatal flaw. But I think the 810 is overturned. From today's point of view, actually, it's not entirely a bad thing. At least he made many users aware of it. It turns out that the performance of a processor is not just a series of simple benchmark numbers. The quality of the processor can really affect all aspects of the overall machine experience. Then after watching this video, in the future when you chat with your friends, you will not only know what is going on, I still know why. So what to say? Can you just arrange 3 consecutive likes? Be sure to like 3 times in a row to support us. Okay, that's all the content of this episode. Remember to follow our Geek Bay. Don't forget to come to our Taobao store and Geek Bay store to check out the various peripherals. There are also our t-shirts, various mouse pads, etc. We'll see you next time. Bye.